about to begin. Good day and welcome to the webcast, Internet of Things, One Size Doesn't Fit All. I would like to hand the floor over to our first speaker, Jeff Barto, Trust Advocate. Jeff, please go ahead.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome, Jamie. Hello to everybody who has joined us today, wherever you are around the world. From the mountains to the prairies to the great white north of Canada and from sea to shining sea, everybody, everywhere in between and beyond, thank you for taking time in your day and for joining your colleagues today and participating in our discussion. My name is Jeff Barto, and I am a Trust Advocate here at Symantec. We are the first original and leading SSL certification authority and the worldwide leader in securing all the people and things in our businesses and lives. Look, it's our duty to help you put security first by keeping you up to speed on what's new and now in security and trust. And I am passionate about driving and inspiring fundamental trust both within IT and IS, but also on a very public internet, an internet that's expanding per our topic today. We are all in this together, and I truly believe that. On that point, it's important to experience multiple points of view and communication styles. So joining me later today is going to be my co-host and cohort, Kevin Haley, who is a director in Symantec's Security, Technology, and Response Group. It is honestly an honor for me to co-present with Kevin today. He's not just the subject matter expert for today's topic, but he's a font of knowledge and an expert in the field and a really good presenter. I have a lot of respect for Kevin, who's going to be joining us later again, but I wanted to make the introduction now. Now, before we begin, let's take care of a few housekeeping items. You've all heard the usual advice about experiencing the best webinar performance and quality. And although I have a head cold today, that's certainly one thing I hope you don't hear crystal clear. You have heard me say, however, that we're all in this together. So on that note, we do want your interaction and your feedback. We're going to have a poll at the end, and I'm going to tee that up. I want to invite you to respond when that time comes. So please stick around for that. We're also going to have some Q&A, so that's open now, and you should feel free to submit questions at any time. If we have time, we're going to handle them live at the end of the presentation or online afterwards if we run short on time. Contact information, if you want to reach out to us and learn more, talk more, continue the conversation, that's going to be shown prominently at the end of the presentation. And last but not least, yes, we are recording this presentation. You can get a link to the recording. You can get a copy of the slides in PDF format. You can get an emailed list of all the wonderful resources we're going to direct you to. All that's going to come after the presentation is concluded. Instructions are going to be provided for that. We'll either do that live or by email. Okay, so that said, let's dive into the topic for today. Okay, so I want to make sure that you know who's talking here. That's me on the left. That's Kevin coming up soon on the right. So you've got faces to put with names, and here's our topic for today, the Internet of Things. So let's all jump into our time capsules, and let's go a little over a year back. And let's view a headline that I saw here on The Verge. Okay, and everybody's in an uproar, we're still in an uproar at that point, about what the NSA is up to. Who are they looking at or looking into? What access do they have to things? And can they be using, of all things, an Xbox to spy on you? And there's an interesting turn that happens in the sequence of events here as kind of the furor over what the NSA is doing dies down, and the realization that there's so many new connected devices out there rather than connected people and organizations. Okay, so since we're in our time capsules, let's go to just a year later from July 2013 to July 23rd, 2014, and here's some news that shows up in Forbes about how your home security system could be hacked to spy on you. Okay, now we're still in the spying realm, but notice the common theme here. Home stuff. Entertainment first, then security and safety. A month later, here's another headline. Ars Technica says that of all things, your toilet can be hacked. Someone figures out how they can gain control over a high-tech toilet, of all things. And control that. I mean, imagine if there's one thing, there's plenty of things you don't want to go down in your house, and a toilet's one of them. If someone can gain control of that. Okay, not to make light of it, but there is a common theme going on here. We're coming up to the current month. Headlines, I apologize, is that at the Black Hat Conference, someone goes and hacks the Nest thermostat, and they did so in record time. Okay. Again, a kind of spying theme, but that's not the important part as much as someone can control these devices. And look at the themes of the kinds of devices being controlled here, or hacked, or gotten access to, or broken, or whatever the terminology is that's in your head. Entertainment, security, safety, utilities, comfort, ventilation. Some basic things that are inside your house. And I start to worry as a consumer. I mean, we're all consumers. We all live in homes. Could someone get control en masse of these things and literally do a DDoS attack on my home? Okay, I'm freaking out a little here. But let's switch the context here out of home and into work. Okay, so let's remove the first headline because we should all not be playing Xbox at work or games at work. But keeping in mind these headlines, okay, there are work analogies to each one of these. Remember that news about the hacked toilet? Think of the different kinds of businesses and operations that have restrooms. Restrooms that are gonna need updates. Let's think about that infrared sensor that saves you from having to press the button to, or push the handle to flush the toilet. Eventually, there's going to be a bug and someone's going to need to fix something in that firmware. And now, in large locations, toilets of all things are connected devices because they can be pushed updates. And if they can be pushed updates, then they're connected. And if they're connected, you kind of get the point. And we don't want what's pictured in the image there to be happening at work. But I start thinking of where there's a lot of toilets, like, airports. And if there's sure a way you want to shut down an airport, shut the toilets down. Like, I start to panic here a little, but moving through the different examples here and finding the work analogies, I spoke a little about security and safety and those fire alarms that are on the wall. How do you think they notify the police or the security service or whoever they notify? Through an internet connection. And that internet connection means it's on a network, and networks are vulnerable. Okay, let's move on here with the next analogy. Okay, you know that thermostat that everybody in the office goes and fights over because some want it colder and some want it hotter, and there's usually arguing and fist fighting over that. That's usually routed not just to the heating and ventilation system for that room, but for the building and maybe for the campus, and maybe that can be managed elsewhere or centrally or maybe part of a smart whatever. That means a live internet. You get the point here that all these things may need update or not, but they certainly are becoming more connected, and they're online, which means that they're part of your network and means that they're a possible vector for attack. And that gets us really concerned no matter what your context is. Consumer, whether you're at home, when you're at work, whether you're a user of these, whether you control these, whether they're under your purview in IT, there's some concern here because suddenly you've got devices on your network that may be vectors for attack themselves. So let's expand from these three examples and let's think about the other things. Connected refrigerators, it's happening. What about that nifty new soda dispenser you have in your break room or your cafeteria, the one that can pump out 100 different flavors of soda? That thing reports in each night to the central office as to what people are buying and what the trends are, and at least so they know what needs to be refilled, which means an active network connection, which means there's a vector there. And likewise, think of the things just that are around you right now that you use just as part of your daily office routine. Your VoIP phone. Those copiers that everybody has a love-hate relationship as it jams up and doesn't want to print and copies and spits out the wrong colors and goes crazy. They're connected too. And that speakerphone, often a VoIP phone, it's on its own network. So I'm starting to freak out a little here, a little more. And looking at the news even more recently, within the last matter of hours, Apple introduces a new watch. And here I am wearing my Fitbit, which I love, which is now a connected device, knows a lot about me, a lot about my health and where I am, what I'm doing. I think it's about time that we turn things over to my co-host and cohort, Kevin here. Kevin, I've got a big ask here, and that is straighten us out and either calm things down or let's put some reality and some definition to what the situation is. Kevin?
Well, Jeff, thanks. I have to admit I'm a little concerned that I will be able to calm you down, but we'll do the best we can in the time we have today. I just want to talk a little bit about the Internet of Things in terms of the potential. We certainly hear a lot from manufacturers about how many great things it's going to bring to our lives. If you're not familiar with this, this is the spark of life, God passing it on to Adam. And when people talk about the Internet of Things, it's kind of in those kind of reverent tones. So I think that we will see terrific things. It's going to make our lives better. I really look forward to the Internet of Things as it comes forward. But as a security researcher, I also have another view of the Internet of Things, and that's more represented in this painting, which is actually called the Gates of Hell. And when you look at it from the security potential, there are a lot of things to be concerned about. So that's what I want to talk about today, and to start that off, though, I wanted to really put everything in perspective. The Internet of Things, when we think about it, and certainly from a security standpoint, have been around for a long time. Back in 2008, Conficker was a huge, one of the last big malware infections where hundreds of thousands of machines were infected. And as you can see from this headline from CNET around 2009, it started to become public that during that large Conficker infection, a lot of medical equipment was actually infected. And this is probably the first time that many people kind of clued into the fact that a lot of our medical equipment was running embedded OSs. And in fact, that embedded OS was Windows, so it was susceptible. And while most of them were not connected to the Internet, they were accessed by technicians who brought USB keys, which were infected with Conficker, and then jumped right on from the USB key to the medical device once the technician inserted it in to take care of the system. So not really new, the Internet of Things. I'll give you another example from 2012. It's a threat called PrintLove. And PrintLove actually was looking to take advantage of a vulnerability in print spoolers in order to spread itself and infect other people, all machines connecting to the same printer. Unfortunately, if the vulnerability was patched, which was a great thing in terms of stopping the infection, it actually caused the printer to blow up or to continue to print endlessly. And PrintLove had a timer, so it would continue to try to run this attack. So IT would run out, shut down the printer, clear all the wasted paper, and half an hour later they'd be running back to the printer because it would be blowing up again. Again, another kind of example of our Internet of Things long before we even had the phrase or began to think about issues or problems there. I'll give you another one from 2012. This is a threat called Flamer, which infected computers and turned on the Bluetooth. And then it would jump using Bluetooth or a connection any mobile phone had to that computer and turn on, or rather infect the phone as well, and turn on the beacon for both of those. And what it was actually doing was using the computer and the laptop's Bluetooth in order to track the people that it had infected. So by turning the Bluetooth on, it actually gave it a unique identifier, and then somebody was tracking those devices as they moved around using Bluetooth. And they imagine, we don't know for sure, but imagine they had built a little thing to catch the signal from a distance away, and they could watch the way people moved. Now, obviously, if there was a desktop computer, it's probably not going anywhere, but for a laptop or phone, it created kind of a nice surveillance system where you didn't even actually have to have visual contact with the people. I'll move on to 2013, where we started talking about PLOTUS, which was an attack against ATM machines. And indeed, again, an embedded system connected to the Internet, and most likely Windows NT or Windows XP at best, inside an ATM. They actually have systems rack-mounted inside them. These particular attackers were able to get physical access to that computer, put malware on it, and then added a little piece of software that would allow them to cash out remotely. They could actually use their mobile phone to send a text to the ATM, and it would start spitting out money. Now, this is one of the ones we reported about. Attacks against ATMs have been going on for some time, but this is one of the more colorful and more recent ones. And again, probably you could call this the Internet of Things. Finally, backoff is one of the more recent skimmers or memory scrapers, where it will infect a POS system, a cash register, to scrape credit cards out of memory and send them off to the bad guy. Again, this particular attack is not new, or the type of attack. It's been going on for as long as there have been cash registers with embedded OSs in them. And again, there are a lot of cash registers out there that have Windows and are connected to perhaps not the Internet. In some cases, unfortunately, with backoff or victims, they were, but at best, they're on an internal network, but they are connected. So this, too, I would describe as an Internet of Things, and something that we see as security issues that are happening right now. So we don't really have to talk too much about the future to be concerned or to have to take steps to kind of protect ourselves with Internet of Things devices. All right, so a strict interpretation or definition of Internet of Things, I will use the definitive source for these sort of things. I pulled this from Wikipedia. It says the interconnection of unique, identifiable, embedded computing-like devices with the existing Internet infrastructure. So officially, if you want to be really an Internet of Things, you have to have a connection to the Internet. I don't think from a security standpoint that matters that much, and I'm going to call all these other things that we talked about Internet of Things. So again, just another way of saying that the risk is here today. Whatever the future may bring us, the concerns that Jeff has raised, there are Internet of Things issues today that we really need to look at and address. This is a website that for a group of security researchers who have taken it upon themselves to prove how easy it is to hack a lot of the devices that we have in our homes and in our offices. It's www.gtvhacker.com. Here is a part of a list of devices that they have successfully hacked. No criminal intent involved. They just wanted to show that they could get into all these things. Here's some more that they've gotten into, and here you can start seeing refrigerators, televisions, and there's Google Nest. So at this point, these devices have clearly been hacked by security researchers. I'm not aware of any actually in the field hacks of these devices. That includes refrigerators, despite what you may have read in the paper. These have not happened yet with criminal intent, even malicious. They've only really happened in labs with security researchers. So what I really wanted to do then is kind of lay the foundation to say, I think the Internet of Things is here today. I think that's really what I want to talk about today, what we need to do to protect ourselves today. So that's going to be the focus of the next few minutes as I talk about what's going on with the Internet of Things. So let's jump up right into one that we are seeing currently and reported on this year. It's actually a threat called Linux DARLOS, and it infects Linux PCs and IoT devices that are running Linux. As you know, most IoT devices are running Linux today. This particular threat loves to get on PCs, but it doesn't really care. It will get on any device that's running Linux and connected to the Internet. It is attempting to, or once it infects these devices, it's using them to mine cryptocurrency. Now, that's something like Bitcoin. In the case of this particular threat, it's two other kind of similar type cryptocurrencies. It's not actually mining Bitcoin, but Minecoin and Dogecoin. Its attack vectors are kind of interesting. It uses vulnerability CVE 2012-1823, and that has had a patch available since 2012 in May. It also comes with 13 different login credential combinations. So it knows the login and default password for 13 different devices that it automatically tries. And what are those devices? Well, those devices with the default passwords are actually mainly routers. You can get into a set-top box, even a camera or a printer, but what we're seeing most of is routers, and 38% of all the infections are not in Linux PCs, but IoT devices. So this is something that's going on right now, and a lot of people aren't even aware of it. You can imagine security issues if your router is taken over, if an attacker is able to take control of it. Certainly they can use that limited processing power that a router has to mine cryptocurrency, but they can also do things like redirect your browser to wherever it wants to go. These guys aren't doing that, or at least they're not doing it today, but it's a big concern about taking over the router or using it as in one of those DDoS attacks, maybe the one that Jeff is afraid of. We could go start using these devices to do that as well. So there's a number of different things that could happen, and unfortunately, we're making it really easy for the bad guys to get on these devices. And let me show you some stats that were actually done by Tripwire. They went and looked at Amazon and found that 80% of the top 25 best-selling SOHO wireless router models had security vulnerabilities in them. 80% of them ship with known vulnerabilities on them. Here's this one. 30% of IT professionals and 46% of employees don't change the default administrator password on their wireless routers. 30% of IT professionals. I have to say that one more time. 30% of IT professionals who certainly should know better don't change the default password. Is it any surprise that this particular threat goes out with 13 different default passwords and is very successful getting onto routers? The last point is, this is a quote from Dan Greer, who was talking about research done by a guy named Jim Geddes at Black Hat this year, said the average age of the code base of these low-end routers is 4 to 5 years. So that 80% of them have vulnerabilities is not a surprise. Hardware manufacturers don't like to make changes to their systems. They make them very reluctantly, and so many of them are using very, very old versions of Linux, which of course have vulnerabilities that, and in 80% of the cases haven't even been patched. All right, so you can see the risk there of these Internet of Things devices. In this case, it's a router, and I think the risk is very high and could affect all of us, work and IT. I'm going to move to cameras, and this particular story is about the town of Haifa in Israel. And the picture there that you can see a pretty nasty kind of traffic area. There's a tunnel, there's a couple tunnels in there. It's probably a mess in rush hour. There's another interesting thing about this place is it has security cameras that are built in everywhere on there. And attackers or hackers got into the systems that run this tunnel through the security cameras. So they broke in through the security cameras, moved their way through the other systems. They started playing with the traffic lights, making changes. They shut these tunnels down for 8 hours one day because they were able to break in through the cameras. Now, the Israeli government actually isn't really talking about this at all because these tunnels are also used as civil defense centers. And so in case a war breaks out or somebody starts sending rockets into Israel, the citizens are supposed to go there for protection. So you can imagine how they would view any kind of attack that got into one of these, or attacker that got into one of these civil defense centers. Even if really the ultimate goal was to play with the traffic lights, they didn't look kindly on that, and they're not talking about it because it's a security issue. But this is a real threat to all of us who have undoubtedly security cameras in our organizations and are most likely connected to the internet so we can look at them through a web browser or a phone device. And they have vulnerabilities in them. Have we patched them? I don't know. Have we changed the default passwords? I don't know, but it's something for you to think about and find out in your environments. There's a couple other problems there, and in order to kind of talk about those, I'm going to give you the other, famous example of breaking into a camera, and that's the baby monitor, where some creepy hacker managed to find one of these baby cameras connected to the internet, hack into it, and start using the camera and shouting obscenities over the speaker in it. This is clearly a creep. I don't know how much of a security issue or a criminal element in terms of trying to steal something, but not a great situation. But we know the company that's responsible for this actually have suffered losses and faith in their product, as you can probably believe, and they've hired somebody to come in and focus on security and try to stop this from happening again. That's great. I mean, it's too bad most of these manufacturers wait till something happens, but that they finally got involved, and that's terrific. So we knew a little bit about the problems that they're facing as they try to secure their cameras after the fact. And let me talk about some of these challenges that we know this vendor faced, but in reality, all vendors who do Internet of Things devices face or will face if they haven't thought about them. First of all, the camera company couldn't figure out how to notify their customers that they needed an update. These cameras are bought through third parties, through resellers. They're not bought directly from the manufacturer. The manufacturer doesn't know who their customers are. Now they thought, well, we could put a notice up in the app to say, hey, there's a vulnerability and you need to patch it. The problem with this particular app is that nobody uses it. The people that buy the cameras actually download free third-party apps to manage it. So there's absolutely really no way for the manufacturer to contact customers to let them know. Now, the manufacturer did put notice of the vulnerability up on their website before this incident happened, but who buys a baby camera and then goes to the website to see if there's vulnerabilities? Just doesn't happen, right? But let's say you did do that. You were diligent enough as a parent of newborns to search to see if the manufacturer of this device had vulnerabilities that they knew about and patched for. If you went to the website, you'd get actually pretty well-written instructions on how to update. But the update actually was flashing the ROM and in order to update it, because that's the type of device it was. And no matter how good or well-intentioned you were as parents of newborns, you were probably unlikely to be very comfortable about doing something like that, even if it was well-documented. So I doubt that anybody went to the website. If they did, there were some barriers to them from updating, getting rid of that vulnerability, getting rid of the danger. It also raises a question then. You say, well, we manufacturers should just auto-update those devices. Maybe. I don't know that I have an answer for this, but I know some of the issues, and I will argue with you that the cure could possibly be worse than the disease. And let me kind of tell you why I think that. When you look at the issues of updating the device, the first thing you got to say was, does the manufacturer really have the right to update your device? I don't know that there's much argument on that in the PC space. Certainly, we've been updating people with virus definitions since about 1993, I think, with our live update capability. You can click the button and it will download. I mean, you can set something now that say, yeah, go ahead and do it automatically. Many of the vendors, Microsoft and others, have these sort of auto-update capabilities. There's always user buy-in to start, but you can argue that it's automatically. But when we start to talk about Internet of Things devices that are things like a Fitbit, are wearable devices, are things that are very personal to us, do we want the manufacturer doing things like that without our okay, without our say, making changes on those? And even if we do, there's a question is, can the manufacturer do it successfully? And I'll point to this example which recently happened, you see, in August, where Microsoft actually had to withdraw a Windows 8 update after it caused boot failure. Even somebody with as much experience and technical expertise at doing this as Microsoft had a problem, and that update was not successful. When we start thinking about this in terms of something like a thermostat, a smoke detector, if the manufacturer bricks the device or just the update fails and now our device is not working and we don't even know that's the case, we don't know that that smoke detector is no longer functioning because the update failed, you can see where the problems are with that, and something that manufacturers really need to take some time thinking about and make sure that they're comfortable and we're comfortable with what they're doing. All right, next thing is, will the manufacturer protect against spoofed updates? Let me give you an example. It is not from the Internet of Things. It is a PC example. Well, actually, it is Internet of Things because it includes manufacturing devices, industrial control systems, but kind of a Windows-based one, to be honest. So there's an attack group called Dragonfly that actually have an ongoing cyber espionage campaign against energy targets in Europe and the US. They're trying to steal information and do sabotage. What's relevant to this discussion is what the attackers did to get on these systems. The attackers went to one of the software vendors of their targets. one of the vendors delivering software for these victims, these customers, and they downloaded the software update. They actually did this to 3 different manufacturers. They took that software update, they downloaded it, they actually inserted their own Trojan into it, and then they uploaded that software update and replaced their Trojanized version with the legitimate one. So now at these 3 sites, customers come, they download the update. That update is installed, and it's successfully installed on the system, but so is the Trojan horse. Right? So here is a risk to all of us to say, this is in the PC space, it could easily move into the Internet of Things space as well. Now, companies like Symantec, companies like Microsoft, they have things in place, including digital signatures of the package, checking to see if the packages have been tampered with. They have all sorts of protection from these types of attacks. These software vendors in the PC and industrial control system space didn't, and you can be sure that in the Internet of Things space, manufacturers probably are not thinking about this particular type of attack either. So this is really a concern. All right, finally, will the manufacturer protect against the device or owner being spoofed? In other words, if I pretend to be a legitimate customer, are you going to catch that and stop any security issue that might happen here? Let me give you an example of this from the mobile phone space. Some of you may have heard about this one. iPhone users back in May, a number of them in Australia and in Russia began to see something pop up on their iPhone. Actually, this screen say, hey, you've been hacked. If you want to unlock the device, it's going to cost you $100. Sounds like ransomware to me. In fact, it is. Usually ransomware has malware involved. Actually, in this case, there is no malware. There's no malware on the iPhone doing this. iPhone's pretty safe from malware, but clearly there's other ways if you want to attack it that you can do that. And in this particular case, what the attacker simply used was Find My iPhone. So what did they do? How did this happen? How do we get this screen pop up with a ransom note on it? Well, first of all, the attacker simply logged into My iPhone. The first thing that happens when you use Find My iPhone is it wants you to put a PIN number on the phone. You've lost the phone, you don't want anybody getting at your data, so put a PIN number remotely on it to protect it. So here you enter the PIN number, it goes down to the phone, your phone's now protected from whoever found it getting access, because they don't have the PIN number. And then you can put whatever note you want on there, like, please return my phone, or I'll give you a reward, or here's where you call, whatever, and that functionality is in Find My iPhone as well. So if you have stolen somebody's Apple ID and password, you can pretend that you lost the phone, run this application, and now even though that phone is in my possession, the attacker uses that application to lock my phone and put the ransomware, the ransom note, if you will, onto my phone. So stealing login and password, simple phishing attacks, it allowed them to pretend to be me or pretend to be the victims and run a ransomware type scheme. This is inevitably something that can happen on these IoT devices as well. Will manufacturers look for that? We certainly hope so. All right, so that said, I am not going to, and I know the purpose of the call is not to guide manufacturers on what they should be doing, but I think there's some responsibilities that manufacturers have, and I'm going to share them with you today. First of all, manufacturers have to start with security in mind. Once a device goes out there and then you discover there's security problems, it's probably going to be too late. If you look at the case of that baby camera, their sales did go down. But it also puts us as consumers in a really difficult position when you haven't thought about security to start with as well. And it's certainly going to make us question you as a manufacturer and as a brand. All right, so if you've got security in mind, first of all, have a password strategy. How are you going to get your users to change their password, to make sure they're not using a default? Don't do dumb things like we've seen on the GTV hacker website where default passwords are actually coded in plain text into the application. Don't send that password across the wire in plain text where anybody with a wireless connection can discover it. Have a patching strategy. I can't tell you the exact right one for every type of device, but as a manufacturer, they better have one for their device that works for the type of device it is. Secure that communication between your device and everything it talks about. Again, so the information just can't be snipped off the network. Code sign your files. That's one of the best ways to stop that spoofing of patches. It's also going to make people feel more comfortable when they start looking at the device to know that the files on it are signed. You can attribute who created them, that it is, in fact, the manufacturer of that device. And do pen testing, test. You don't want to let the bad guys do your pen testing for you. You need to do it before the device gets out there. In the end, if you're choosing that kind of hope and pray type security, your brand may not survive it. So there's a lot of help there out on the internet for manufacturers, these things, to put security in mind. I really hope that they go out there and start building these sort of things that way. All right, so Jeff talked about Fitbits. I wanted to cover him. I wanted to give him some tips. Let's look at Fitbit devices or these other kind of what we call quantified self. I'm going to collect data about myself. I'm going to use one of these devices to do that. We actually did some research on this, and we found in the U.S., 60% of adults, according to Pew Research, say they do some sort of self-tracking with their cell phone or one of these devices. The ABI research says there's 170 million self-tracking devices, or there will be that many by 2017. The iWatch, or Apple Watch, excuse me, was announced last week. That may increase that number more than ABI research said. Whatever the final number, we know that there's an awful lot of them that are out there today, collecting information and data about people. And of course, given our viewpoint in the security industry, we're concerned about the risk. Here's where you start with the risk of these devices, is whether it is one of these devices or in mobile phones, we're putting a lot of information in there. In many cases, we're giving a name, our birth date, addresses, social security numbers, and the type of information that these devices collect and track grows incredibly almost every day, from how long you sleep, your GPS coordinates, glucose, mood, weight. I personally have a scale that's connected to the internet. So these devices are out there, they're collecting a whole host of information. And we have to start looking at what is the risk that's involved in these. And if we look at the basic architecture, we say that where you have these devices that talk to phones or PCs and then into the cloud, we really have the risk in all 5 places here. We have it from breaking into the device itself, the information on the wire, again, breaking into the PC or the phone for that information, breaking into the cloud, or again on the wire between them. Now that architecture is not 100% the way the architecture is. Sometimes we see the devices talk to the cloud and then your phone or PC talks to the cloud as well. I think whichever way the risks remain the same. So just for the purposes of moving forward, I'm going to think about and talk about the risks in terms of this way. If you walk away with nothing else today, what I would encourage you to do when you start to use these Internet of Things devices, especially as security is not yet built into them, maybe one day we don't have to worry about this, but as we worry about these things today, the risks you have to consider are these 5 areas, and that's where you need to think when you start adopting these devices, whether personally or in your business. All right, I just wanted to throw in there as another example. This is kind of a breakdown of the technology in something like a fitness tracker. There's an incredible amount of technology in these things, and there you can see tracking things like motion detectors and Bluetooth chip, because the Bluetooth generally is one of the ways these things communicate with the phone or with the PC. But we've also got our phones, right, which have more and more of these devices or sensors that are able to track every single day as well. From accelerometers, you've got your gyroscope or GPS sensors, cameras, microphones, and so on. So there is a host of data and information that are being collected by these devices, hence the risk. Here's a device that we created. Maybe you can think about it as our own Internet of Things, but this is something that Symantec did in the course of our research around these tracking devices. We actually took a Raspberry Pi, Bluetooth, a memory card and a battery pack, and for $75 we built this little device. And what could it do? Well, what it can do is track any instance of Bluetooth broadcast. So we actually went out in public places and we set a number of these $75 devices up, and we started to see what they could find. And in fact, what we found was a host of people. The 60% number of people using these types of devices became very believable for us. We also found that each of these devices, of course, have their own unique hardware ID and a serial number, so it makes it really easy to track them individually, to know one from the other, because they all have a unique number. But in addition to that, many people have added their names as an identifier to their device, Kevin's Fitbit. So you not only have a unique identifier, but you also have a pretty good idea whose device it is, or at least their name is on it. And if you have these devices then set up and somebody is moving around, when you have our $75 device in a certain place, you can see where those people are going, where they check into the various monitors you have, and you can track their movements. Now, this is something obviously we did as part of our research, but the whole idea, if you say in practical terms, nobody would really ever do that, or it doesn't seem practical. Well, I can actually point out one to you that happened in 2012. In fact, London, on the streets of London, installed trash cans. Now, these were smart trash cans in some ways. You can see they actually had a little LED display that's got the time on it there. Let me see, I point that out to you. It's right there. These were put in for the London Olympics. And they also had a network connection because they wanted to be able to update this LED if they had a problem or if they needed to communicate to people in London during it. They wanted to be able to put messages on these trash cans. So they were all over the city, and if you needed to warn somebody about not go to a certain area or whatever, you could put that message on the trash can. So you could send it out over the network. So that's all well and good, but it actually turns out that the manufacturers of these trash cans also had the ability to capture Wi-Fi signals. So anybody walking by with a phone that had the Wi-Fi turned on, they would be able to detect you. So using the trash cans, they were able to track where people walked through the streets of London. Kind of sounds fantastical, but was actually true. Now, not malicious in intent. What they were trying to do is direct you to the store to give you a coupon on your phone for a free cup of coffee if you were headed towards a coffee shop in the area, or so on. That actually was their vision and what they were selling. Fortunately, the people in London found that whole idea pretty creepy, and those trash cans have actually been removed. But pretty good example of how, again, the Internet of Things, it's here today. Those risks, privacy concerns we have, security concerns are already with us. All right, so I think the big lesson to take away, and we look at our kind of risk level, is whether it's an Internet of Things device or a laptop or a PC, they are 100% traceable. It is very easy with $75 to set up the technology to track where you go, identify you, and track where you go with these devices. We looked further at these applications, these tracking applications, and we also found some interesting things there. It's collecting a lot of information from you. Many of these application vendors have privacy policies to tell you what they're doing with that data. Many, but not even more than half. 52% of them don't even have a privacy policy. So they're collecting all your personal information and they're not even telling you what they're going to do with it. I mean, that's concerning. The other thing we found was another example of just bad security practices. 20% of these applications that required a login sent the login and password in the clear and the personal information. So again, anybody with a Wi-Fi sniffer could find your login, your password, and all that personal information being sent around wirelessly. No protection at all from your data from that type of threat. That's pretty concerning as well. The other thing we looked at on these applications devices is who were they talking to? Because there's a tendency to think, okay, well, but that app is sending my information to this one entity, and so one place that's okay. Well, what we found is on average that these applications contacted 5 different domains. One of them actually contacted 14 different domains. It is sharing information from that application with app analytical websites, with ad networks, the app provider itself, which is the one you would expect, but also for the OS provider, social media, app framework developers, marketing people, even a utility API. So your data is potentially exposed and sent to at least, or on average, 5 different websites, 5 different entities, and could be as many as 14. So you may think you're just being shared with one person, or one entity, but it's not. All right, so that's going to bring me around to the big question is, how do I survive the present? I know there's a lot of things that Jeff talked about. We need to be very nervous about the future. How do we even get into the future? How do we prevent or survive? How do we protect ourselves till then? I think we can do it. I think it's really sitting there thinking about those 5 risk areas, and then there's a number of other questions you really have to ask yourself or action to take. And this is true whether you are a consumer of these devices or they're going into your business and you're using them there. The first one I would say is, can you get rid of the device? Do you really need it on your network? Now, you probably didn't buy it if you didn't want to use it and you didn't want to need it on the network. But one of the things that we find is these devices tend to hang out forever, long past the time where they're being used or even useful, and they never kind of leave the network, never get updated. They're always representing a risk, but they're never really being managed. So if you have these devices connected to the internet, I mean, I think this is true of PCs and other devices as well. Do I really need it connected? And if I don't, then I should take it off. We've eliminated the risk right there, right? There's actually a theory going around, or there's a statement that if we have devices that are not remotely manageable, and this is Dan Greer again, if we have devices that aren't not remotely manageable, where you can't manage them, you can't update them, they ought to expire. They ought to they ought to have a short shelf life, because they're just going to provide a risk. They're just going to be vulnerable the longer they sit there. I don't think that will ever happen. I love the idea. I don't think it's going to happen. But we can take that on ourselves to say, do we really need this on the network? And if no, let's take it off. If we can't get rid of the device, if we can't take it off the network, how about just turn off whatever we're not using? I mean, again, this is a best practice that we use in the computer space of turning off services and other things. If we don't need them, let's turn them off, right? Let's turn off Bluetooth. Let's turn off anything that is not required to make this work, because then we're lowering the attack surface. Limit the information you share. I mean, you don't have to name this thing after yourself. You can come up with some other name. Why make it so obvious that it's your device? If it's asking you for your date of birth, you really need to give it. Your social security number, I would really think twice. The information you give, do you really need to give it? And if you don't give it. Don't put it into the device. Don't put it into the tracking system. Put a password on it. Right? Absolutely put a password on it. Change that default password. That 30% of IT people don't change the default password on a router. It's mind-boggling. This is basic blocking and tackling, and we're not doing it. Well, we can't move that forward to the Internet of Things as well. We've got to put passwords on these devices to protect them. Check the manufacturing sites for updates. We have to take that responsibility. We are not going to get a little pop-up that says, do you want to update? We've got some vulnerabilities for you to fix. It's not going to happen on these things. Hopefully one day, but it's not happening now. When you have these devices, the security cameras, your baby monitor, any of these things, Internet of Things that are coming into your homes or your workplace, check the manufacturer's website. And if there's an update, apply the update. This is absolutely necessary on routers too. Don't forget to do this on routers. It's sitting in your closet, you set it up, you forgot about it, make sure it's got a password, and if there's updates to it, update it. Because there's vulnerabilities in there as well. It's running Linux OS. All right. Don't use your name on the device. I guess I'm saying that twice. I think that's important. Consider the cost of free. And this really gets into these applications that don't have a privacy policy. They're sharing your data all over the place. Why are they doing that? Well, that's how they make their money. right? It goes back to the poker saying, if you don't know who the sucker at the table is, it's probably you. If you don't know how they're making, they make their money, it's probably off you. So maybe free is not the right way to go. At the very least, check out these applications. What information, what settings does it want on your phone? Do they have a privacy policy? What are they taking from you? I think, unfortunately, we've got to pay attention to this stuff. Finally, I say use security software if it's available. Hey, look, there's never going to be an antivirus for a Fitbit, for a television, and so on. But in some devices, there is that opportunity. There are security software available, like your phone. Take advantage of it. It can only help. It'll give you another hand in protecting yourself. And finally, I think we have responsibility to put pressure on the manufacturers of these devices to step up to the plate in terms of security. So consider or go out and find out about the reputation of the manufacturer before you buy the device. Do they talk about security? Do they even try? Do they make any indication? Well, go back to that privacy policy. They can't have a very good reputation, in my mind, if they don't have a privacy policy. Have other people complained about them? Are there known issues with these devices? If there are any of those things, stay away from them, right? Because if you can't do business, if it hurts their business because there's no security, then they'll finally take the steps to put it in there. And unfortunately, we've got to exert that kind of pressure in any way that we can. All right, that's the Internet of Things today, and some of the issues that I see, some of the potential solutions for it. I talked a lot about the Quantified Self white paper. There's a link to it right there. There's also a lot of other information that we have on Internet of Things. There's a link to a blog, our news and resource on Symantec.com/outbreak, the Internet Security Threat Report, always a great source of information on security. Is available at that link below, and then some other things on how to secure application services, code signing, again, very critical for Internet of Things, also in our PC space, and there's some more information on code signing certificates. A lot of information that we have available out there, and I urge you to go check it all out. I think it'll help.
Hey Kevin, this is Jeff. You know, this is a great list of resources that you just showed there, and obviously there's more. I mean, here at Symantec, this is what we're about. We're not joking when we say we protect people and things. This is part of our job. We can't do it all, but I mean it when we say we're in it together. There's a lot of your advice is so fundamental and so basic, but it really speaks to how a perspective or mindset needs to change when all of a sudden you're thinking about things which are on networks or can be communicated from or to or what have you. And there's some basics that go beyond your list there, and also for resources that we're good at here, like helping validate identities, individual identities, identifying identities of things on a network, or that you're actually in the right site, or things are talking to the places that they need to, and stuff is being encrypted on its way there and back. These are all things that Symantec can help you with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in many ways it's hard for us as a security advisor to come out and say the same old thing another time. Make sure you have a password. You know, make sure you don't click on attachments from people you don't know, and so on. But unfortunately, people still need that advice. And when you see, again, that 30% of IT folks don't change a default password on a router, you know you have to continue to emphasize the fundamentals. So apologies for people that get it and have already heard it, but we're going to have to keep saying it till everybody does. Hopefully there were a lot of other things there that you hadn't heard before, and as you rightly point out, there's a number of areas that we can give you even a lot more information in, because they're areas of our expertise. Absolutely.
You know, a lot of what I started with, it was some degree of freaking out, and there was some dire and frightening stuff in the content that you covered, Kevin. But on the positive side, there are plenty of things here to think about. I mean, Symantec provides all the advice that can help you operate from a position of strength and not from vulnerability and risk. And then that's in all phases of everybody who's stuck with us. And by the way, a ton of you have stuck with us through this entire presentation, and we greatly appreciate it. But in all phases of your life, as a consumer, as a user, as a business customer, as a vendor, as part of a company and a brand and your fiduciary responsibilities to the place in which you work. I mean, so many different things to think about there. I keep thinking that the utility of the device and the interoperability of a device opens up opportunities for attack, for vulnerability. I mean, there's certainly that trade-off. If you want convenience, if you want convenience, you give up security. If you want security, you're going to give up convenience. But these are all things that we balance in our everyday lives. But the Internet of Things certainly is going to make us think of those more and reinforce the common things that we've talked about for so long.
Absolutely, and I'll say I wish that Symantec could come up with a product that would go on one of these devices and you'd never have anything to worry about. It'd be great for all of us. It'd be great for the shareholders of Symantec. But unfortunately, we're at the point where there's a lot of things that we just need to think about those and prepare ourselves and take the right steps.
Indeed. So on that note, we are about 4 minutes till. I really wanted to get to a Q&A session, but frankly, we're going to run out of time. We got a lot of questions teed up. So here's the bargain that I want to present. First of all, if you've asked a question, we can take those questions offline. We've got your contact information. Assuming that you've entered that accurately, we will be able to get back with you offline if you've answered a question. I apologize, we're probably not going to have time to answer those live. Kevin, after I'm done with a momentary spiel here, if there is anything that you want to cherry pick out, let me know, but I do want to cover what's on the screen in front of you. Okay, first of all, ways to get in touch with us and continue the conversation. You've got a Symantec account manager, reach out to them. If they, often or not, your first point of contact may or may not have the answer that you want, but we've got a ton of resources and people who are motivated and into this, like Kevin and me and everybody else around and behind us that really want to help you make sure that your environment is secure. So we've listed some phone numbers there about who to talk to for digital certificates and all the other Symantec products, how to get in touch with us on the web, 2 URLs right there, as well as email address. Pick any one of these. My old method I like to say on webinars, just because I'm so old school, it's ridiculous, but I like to just do it because it works. And there's an Alt print screen or Command-Shift-3 is going to capture this information just because I'm old school. Grab it, continue the conversation, because we really want to work with you on this and answer any questions that you have. Now, regarding the questions that you've submitted, Kevin, in our waning moments here, is there anything that you do want to pick up or anything that you've noticed in the Q&A that you'd like to surface?
There's a lot of great questions. I hate to just answer one and ignore the others, but I will go through the questions that are appropriate for me, and we'll reach out to the people that have asked them and send them an email and give them answers. So rest assured, it probably takes me a couple days to get through them all, but before the end of the week, you should get an email from me with an answer.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, and I will do so likewise. We've got also others on the line that haven't spoken who either are answering questions or will. With respect to your time, though, that does about wrap it up for our topic and our time together. This is your chance to participate in a poll which has just been pushed live, so thanks for doing that if you'll notice that on the side of your screen. I do want to thank everybody who stuck with us through this meaty topic today. We've had a great time and learned a ton. I really appreciate your time and your participation today. Remember, we mean it. We are all in this together. So for Symantec and my co-host, Kevin Haley, I want to say goodbye and good day, and please stay safe online.
This concludes today's webcast, Internet of Things, One Size Doesn't Fit All. Thank you for attending, and have a good day.